To talk to you about rescue, rehab, and release. Nancy hit all the reasons why we rescue. This is just a little bit about our rescue team, which when we started, well, it was about 3 years ago, we had 5 people. Now, Maggie doesn't like this number, but I say 50 because we have a lot of transporters around that just do transporting. You know, Nancy says, can you meet me here? Can you meet me there? And we send people out and we bring birds from over here to Orlando. We receive calls from finders, FWC, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, EagleWatch volunteers, and then we get birds from Nancy, from Barb, and other organizations around the state. We are, Maggie and I are the co-coordinators. Basically, we ask one of our crew to go out and rescue. We rescue all birds of prey in the 5 counties that are around in our area. But we rescue eagles everywhere, not necessarily our people. But Nancy got a call from me this morning. Nancy, got an eagle for you in Polk County. So wherever they come into the center, we get a lot of calls just because we are the Audubon Center for Birds of Prey. People call us even if the bird's in Pensacola. So we just reach out and make sure the bird gets rescued. We help other organizations transport. We jumped the gun there and talked about that with Nancy. Once the birds are rescued, they're brought to our clinic, and every bird gets a physical exam, including an eye exam. If there's a need, x-rays are taken. Blood work, lead, this is a lot of, what Nancy started talking about. Fluids and food are given. I can remember a time when Nancy and I took a bird over. We were taught how to force feed an eagle. That was fun. You hold, you feed. And I'm like, I'll hold. And Sam's like, no, you will feed. And I'm like, okay. You have to stick your finger in their mouth to open it. That was fun. But these days, we can do it with our eyes closed, right? Any necessary medicine is given, sometimes preventative medicine as well. We had a bird that was taken down in Lake George last week, actually right after I got phone with Nancy. We were talking about another thing that was going on. And I actually had a finder rescue it out of the lake. Came in and it has puncture wounds, probably territory fight. No infection yet, but it's on a 10-day round of antibiotics before it goes to the fight barn. That way we know when it goes out with a great amount of success. And they stay in the clinic until they're ready to go to our rehab area, to our 100-foot. Most eagles go out to the 100-foot. They only go to our rehab area mostly if we're backed up, and because we can only have so many in the flight barn, and then they start crashing into each other. So they'll go to rehab to wait for some to be released, and then the next set goes down. That usually happens when we have the kids in the spring, the kids that fall out in droves. And you see here Sam weighing an eagle. She has her gloves on, the bird's hooded, we lay them on the back, and we get their weight every day. You see Beth there. That bird has pox, so she's putting iodine on the lesions around the eyes. Once the birds go to flight, they learn to fly, like this first-year eagle, or they're honing their flight skills, or they're being conditioned like an adult. Like the bird I was telling you from Lake George went to the flight barn today. So it'll get up on the high perch, and just from being in clinic, they start to get a little atrophy. Their muscles are a little weak. So I go down to the flight barn and I actually fly them back and forth so that they build up the muscles so that they can be released. The criteria for that is they must do rounds, they must land, and then they must be able to get from the ground to the high perch, because that's a totally different set of muscles that you need to be able to get away if you're on the ground and need to get up. Release. Release is the best part. We have a professional photographer that takes these pictures. He goes on our releases, he comes, he does the center. And this one just barely, David missed this one, right over David's gloves. But this is what we strive for. We strive to get these birds back out in the wild. Any given year, we release upwards 35, 40 eagles. We get in 100, so those 40% that go out it's amazing. And as Nancy knows, most of you guys have been to eagle releases, it is the thing. The rescue is a lot of adrenaline, but you cry when they go out. You're just like, oh my gosh, look what we did for this bird. So we catch him up in the flight barn, which you see, David's like, I don't know, 6'5" or something. So he's got really long arms and everything. He has actually caught 2 of them in midair. He has an adult even. He was standing on, we don't tell people this, but he was standing on the food platform and up there, this bird took us half an hour to get it down. That tells you how well conditioned it was. We turned off the cameras before we did it too, because we actually have a camera in there that's public link. And it took him with a net on the food platform to get that bird down. So we do a weight check. Those white things that you see up there, everybody goes, what's that? They're bumpers. They're like bumpers you put, like football bumpers. They get carpal wounds if they hit, if they overshoot the perches and hit the walls. So we put the bumpers on. So we take the bumpers off, make sure the carpals are good. Check their weights to make sure. We do that way ahead of time, and if a bird's not up to admit weight, we'll even grab them each day and make sure they're force fed so that their weight's up and ready to go. But there's nothing like coordinating a release, getting a bird in hand, and not being able to release it, and having to put it back in the flight barn. It's disappointing for everybody and everything that you've done. So we band all of our eagles when they're released. They get a U.S. Fish and Wildlife and an auxiliary band. So all adults get U.S. Fish and Wildlife bands. The males are banded on the left and the females are banded on the right. Other than Maggie and, well, we'll say Nancy, Kim, and Louise, why is that? What? Well, I said Kim, no. Because women are always right. You didn't really know the answer to that anyway, right? So, but that's how we remember what we band. Women are always right, so the females get on the right and the males get on the left. We don't pull DNA on the adults. We go by weight and biometrics, so we measure the beak and the talons. For the kids that come out of a nest that we know where they're from, you know what nest they're from. Sometimes we get eagles in, like Stuart, where he called in an eagle. We have no idea where that nest is, but we rescued the eaglet. You'll get the Fish and Wildlife band, won't get the auxiliary band. But we do pull blood on those to make sure, because it is part of a scientific study that we do with our auxiliary bands. The auxiliary bands go on the opposite leg of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife bands, and they're only on the fledglings that come from nests that we know about. So they come, there's David, one he actually caught. So yeah, he looks pretty intense there, doesn't he? He's like, oh my God, I'm gonna get it. So the way that works with the auxiliary bands is you do black or green. Black designates artificial, green designates natural nests. And anybody want to take a wild guess which ones, like we're at the numbers now, do we get more of the green or more of the black? Green. Green because we have hurricanes. On a platform, on a tower, that nest will stay. In a tree, the tree goes over, the nest goes out. On a good storm in the summer, nests go. So you see more birds coming out of actually tree nests. They're double, almost triple at this point, the amount coming out of the artificial. Plus, honestly, I never thought about it this way, but it kind of dawned on me the other day. There are more natural nests than there are artificial nests. I mean, we see it here, more artificial nests, but being out in Osceola County, now I'm actually coordinating 5 other counties, Orange, Osceola, Seminole, Lake, and Volusia, and there are a lot more natural nests there. So just the sheer numbers of nests too, but I would have said that as well. And in the beginning, I always ask the question, you think male or female came out? You know, people think female because they're big and they're crazy and they jump out but we're actually getting more, it's evening out more. We're getting a fair number of males as well. So that number is actually evening, being leveled out. Our release sites are carefully selected. We don't release adults in any area, unless we know they're from there, in any area where there's an eagle nest 2.5 miles away. So we do a lot of our releases. We have an area in Riverview in southeast Hillsborough County. We have Bach Tower, which is a beautiful place to release to begin with. People are fantastic there. That is nowhere near an eagle's nest. Those are the two places. We have a little place up in Volusia County that we do for our side of the state, but those are the main places where we release to keep them from getting into trouble again is the problem. Where you have high concentrations of eagles, Lake Tarpon, even that area, Roger, that power line corridor area, we wouldn't release there anyway because of the power lines, but that whole area there, Osceola County, we have 6 nests, out by Joe Overstreet, which helps the kids, but not the adults. There are big concentrations that we need to stay away from for releasing so that they don't get taken down after we just paid $5,000 to rehab them and release them. For kids, we pick an area where there are a lot of eagles because they need to learn. They need to see role models and they need to learn how to hunt, how to fish because they fell out of their nest and their family never got a chance to do that with them. So we have been releasing at Joe Overstreet. We've released up by the Orlando wetlands a little bit, not by the water. There's too much water there, but across the street, there's Halscott or Seminole Ranch, which is a nice area. One of Louisa's birds went there. You weren't able to go, but we released one of your birds there. Really, really nice area. So we're looking at probably releasing a little bit more there. There are 3 or 4 nests in that area. We wouldn't do an adult there, but kids we would put there as well to, space them out and everybody. When I first started, I'm like, we're really overloading that area. It's really, it's a great area, has a lot of resources, a lot of land, a lot of, prey. But you know what? We put the GPS trackers on, which I'm going to talk about later. They stay for 3 or 4 days. They're gone. They're gone. The one went to Quebec, the other one went to New York. They hung out, did some fishing, went across the state and took off. So really, it's just a launch area. It's a place to give them a start. Get yourself together, figure out what you're doing, go somewhere. Get out of the heat, go up north, come back when it's, cooler down here. So, adult eagles, we generally just do a light like this, and then they take off. They know what to do. They've flown in the wild before. Juveniles are very clumsy, very klutzy, even when you see them fledge out of your own nests. They do this, they land, they're like this, So we just put them on the ground and let them do their thing. Some sit forever, and then we have to wait while we're standing out in the heat. And some are like Nancy's bird, and went. It was great. It came right over my head, so I got a picture. I got a great video of it. But man, that bird flew. So here we have some of our volunteers attempting to net that adult there, attempting to, corner them to get them down. Adults are harder than the kids because they have flown, they have more endurance, they know how to stay away from predators like us. So here are the bands that I was talking about. Black band, we are probably up around 40 now for that. And silver band. And here we always have a group of people because we hand carry eagles to release so that we take those bumpers off, right? We're not going to release them out there with those bumpers. So we don't put them in a kennel because if they come out of the kennel and they hit as they're coming out, they can actually injure themselves or bounce around in the hour travel it takes to get to Joe Overstreet or an hour and a half that it takes to get to Bach Tower. So we hand carry them all. We have donor releases, we have volunteer releases, we have our sponsor releases, we have rescuers release. I mean, Nancy and I coordinate that really well when they're her birds, when they're our birds. We just have a whole bunch of, it's fun because each one of them, we have different people that go and it's just great connection. It's a lot of people tell me it's like the coolest day of their life. It was to go to an eagle release. So it is really, truly a lot of fun. And I can honestly say it's when I get to see my buddies, when they come over, we meet at Bach Tower or whatever, because we don't get to see each other anymore since I moved over to Central Florida. And there you can see, so A38, K93. So virtually triple, right? The numbers on the bands. So almost hitting 100 and almost hitting 40 on the other. So let's talk about the study a little bit. Our theory for setting this up was we want to see male versus female and natural versus man-made. Will they, in 5 years, will they nest the same? Will they pick the tree, because they were from a tree? Will they pick a tower because they're from a tower? So we have two that we actually have data on. One is in Louises County. They came from Marion County and from a tree nest, and they're in Pinellas in Lake Tarpon area. And they actually chose, it was a female as well, chose a tree nest also. And she had 2 babies last year, 1 baby last year, 1 baby last year. We had one that was from an artificial tower, in Bartow, that actually is a tower that I watch in Winter Park. And she ended up nesting on a tower. She was from a tower in Winter Park, so she was in Orange County. And she ended up having 2 that year, and one of hers fell and got rescued and came to the center. So she passed on that gene. And that bird was tagged and released, abandoned and released. So unfortunately, she did get hit by a car and passed away. But those are the 2 that we have data on. We're sure many others have nested. We just don't know where. So if you see those green or black bands, or any bands for that matter, blue bands from New York or wherever, try to get the numbers if you can. A lot of us are photographers. We got great cameras and we can do that. And then let anybody know, because we get it to Sean Lee, it'll go to the banding lab, Nancy can send it to the banding lab and send it to us. So, and the resightings are amazing, amazing. So now we're going to talk about the telemetry that we're doing. It has been a dream of Sean Lee's forever to try to do this telemetry. And it takes a lot to get a program like this off the ground. It was enough to get the banding, just the banding off the ground. But telemetry, we have to have Gina Kent come down from Gainesville to do this and everything, and find the right birds. So we're doing 4 a year. We're doing 2 juveniles and 2 adults. This was the first juvenile that went out, and we're trying to do man-made, urban versus rural, male versus female, artificial versus natural. So you need to find 2 birds that are going to check off those boxes. We get a lot of babies, so it happened, but it happened quickly actually for us. Like at the first 2 sets of releases, we actually checked off all those boxes. We were able to get Gina down there. We were able to get everything set up. And this is a great study. So we picked Joe Overstreet because we released a lot of the juveniles there. So we want a base for where they're being released. Bach Tower is the base for the adults, because most of the birds we rescue, most of them are from Central Florida, meaning from the West Coast to the East Coast, maybe up to Lake County. With some of the other ones, we got one in from Marion County, and that one we opted not to put in Polk County, to send it back up there. So this bird was fitted with the backpack. It was put on the ground, took off. Kind of looks grumpy, doesn't he? Like, oh, looks grumpy there. But he did have to be in hand for a little bit longer to put the backpack on. It takes about 45 minutes to put it on, because she actually stitches it, sews it, glues it, torques it, is a lot. And it costs a lot of money, so she wants to make sure it's not going to fall off. And we do a lot of painstaking, where's this bird from? What was its injury when it came in? Most of them don't have them when they're kids, but to make sure we set it up for success. And then the sponsors are not sponsoring a bird that went down in 2 days. So this is this is the first one. This is the male. He went all the way up to Quebec. And he is now in Pennsylvania on his way back. Yeah, so the female story is crazy. So she went up to New York. She didn't cross the border. But when she came back down, in 2 days from New York, she was in Osceola County. 2 days. And when she flew up, she flew 250 miles in 1 day. 1 day. So they got their bearings. Joe Overstreet both one stayed for 3 days, one stayed for 4 days. wandered around, got the lay of the land, figure out, oh, shoop, gone. So it's just crazy. It's the stuff we're learning is just, it's amazing, amazing. Anybody want to guess where their favorite places to go on the way north? No, you're close though, but think fast food. Ah, you got it. This guy stayed for a month in a landfill in, I think, North Carolina, to the point where the sponsor made arrangements to go to the landfill to take pictures of him. And when she did that, he took off. So she never ended up going to check on him. So, yeah, yep, exactly. So the last one of the releases from last season, was a bird actually from down the street. It was in Osceola County in Kenansville, was sighted in New Hampshire this year. So they're all going up that Atlantic Flyway. Yep, it was amazing. This was our last release. We did a Bach Tower. We did our first adult, and it was last week. And this bird was rescued in front of a hotel at Epic Universe. He was hit by a car. He had a lot of blood in his mouth, but nearly nothing broken, everything. We waited a while because internal trauma can manifest later on. It sometimes was in the flight barn for an extra week too to make sure that everything was going to be good. We decided it was a good candidate. It was found by Nest OR 87. Released it in Polk County, close enough to western part of Orange County. Anybody want to guess how long it took him to get back to his nest? Well, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that easy, like a little over 24 hours. Yeah, well, you've got nighttime too, Dad in there. Yeah, he was back. I mean, he knew how to get there. So that solidifies our theory that no matter where we release them, even though we don't do this, they will go back to their nest. They find. I mean, if we took this bird down to Miami, it would get back, but it probably doesn't go to Miami when it migrates because it's migrating from Orlando north, But yeah, it was amazing. So he is back at his nest, and we're going to follow him. And that was obviously a spoiler alert because we haven't released any of the data on this because we don't release it for 2 weeks. But now you guys know something that not a lot of people do know. This next one we're going to tag from Lake George, we don't know if it's an intruder or not, because there are like 7 or 8 nests on Lake George. Lake George is kind of wild. So you have Volusia County, Putnam County, Marion County, Lake County, and there are all these nests around there, and they move 16,000 times because they're all tree nests, and things come down, and then there are eagles out here. So was it passerby or was it somebody intruding on a territory? But how do you intrude on a territory? It's just kind of crazy. So this will be fun to see if this bird goes back and is nesting there, or was it an intruder? Doesn't maybe even have a mate. Maybe he's just moving around trying to find a mate. So this one I think is going to be more mysterious than, I fell, I get hit by a car, I stayed in my area. We know we're going to, you're going to go back to that area. So, and then we are putting a tracker on that Lake George one. Hopefully we're going to release that probably next week, assuming the bird does well in the flight barn. And then you can see a little bit of the tracker on there. You see the silver band. This was the bird you just saw that was released at Bach Tower. One of my volunteers here sponsored here in Hillsborough County, sponsored the tag on that. Actually, one of Kim's volunteers Annie sponsored one of the kids. So if anybody's interested in sponsoring any of these GPS tags, let me know. I can connect you with Sean Lee. The cool thing about these trackers are that they do ping off of the cell towers. The girl, the juvenile that was released, she went AWOL for like a day. Sean Lee's freaking out. Oh my God, she did. She does that. No, she was in a preserve and there were no cell towers around, so she wasn't pinging. She was pinging, but nobody was picking her up. So I was happy because she was in a preserve and not a landfill, but nobody else was happy because she was not on the radar. But she ended up doing well. And that, I think she at this point was, last I heard, was at Three Lakes Wildlife Management Area. But that's the one that went back to a cell tower nest at the theme park. So we'll see how he does. I don't think they were successful last year, but he may come back with that beautiful bling, and she's like, "This is great. Look." So, anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Is there any way for like just regular people to follow the tag?
So we do have it posted. It's a delay for the sponsors. They get real time because they paid for the tracker. But yes, if you want to come up and give me your email address, yeah, it is public, but it's delayed by about 7 days. But I give you spoiler alerts. I give people all kinds of spoiler alerts. So, but yeah, let me know and I can do that for you. That's
I was just getting 2 questions.
Okay.
Why do they get hit by cars? Like, I would think they're flying higher. And then why do they like the dump, the landfill?
Well, it's fast food. It's free food.
Do they eat like rats or something?
No, yeah.
Garbage.
Yeah.
Chicken, they eat.
Yeah.
So just whatever, there's plenty of rats in there.
Right. And I mean, Nancy's right. If you go to the landfill, if you can stand the smell, it's a great place. You have juveniles, you have second years, third, you can see every phase there. And it's like, Kim and I went, we were like, oh, it's over here. No, over here. No, this is 2-year-old over there. We were like on overload by the time we left.
I mean, there's plenty there now, but the best time to go is like in December, because everybody else, right now, everybody's moving. Once everybody settles down and starts nesting, these babies aren't allowed anymore, and they go to the dump. And probably 90 to 95% of the eagles you see at the dump are juveniles or subadults.
Right.
It's absolutely amazing.
And it's so, eagles are opportunist feeders too. So they'll steal food, they'll eat carrion. That's how they get hit by a car. That ties that in too. They steal food from ospreys, whatever they can do to not have to do it themselves. So, yes, anything they can do to actually not have to do it themselves. So, I guess. I guess. I'm not sure. I want to eat food from the dump, but
What else you find in the dump that was really surprising to me? You find gulls, which you would expect.
Yep.
You find vultures, which you would expect. Wood squirrels. Lots of wood squirrels.
Yeah.
And we saw garbage. I'm like, what the heck is that about?
Wow.
The long-necked stumps are there too. We see them a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to one of my volunteers in Seminole, and she called me yesterday, and she's like, they told me about this new eagle nest. So I told her how to GPS it when she goes back. And she's like, oh my gosh, there were egrets. And she named off she goes, it's a great place to go birding. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Go ahead. I know you had a question over there. Oh no, I thought about going to her first because you had it. Okay. Yes. If you want to come up and give me your email address, I'll send it to you. Yeah, I'll send it to you, and then you can pass it around if you want. Yeah, for sure. Or I'll have Sean Lee send it to you. I'll pass you on to Sean Lee, and she can send it out. So either way, one of us will. Yeah, for sure.
So the trackers you were talking about, if you get a sponsor, what's the cost? And then once it's on the bird, if that bird ends up not making it and it's recovered, is that tracker able to be used on another bird?
That's a really good question. We never ask that because we're always hoping that it depends on what kind of condition it's in. It's sort of like everything else, what kind of condition, how long has it been? The battery. So on the tracker, the actual backpack is good for, whatever. It's the battery inside. It usually goes 3 years is what it's, quoted. Sometimes it can go 5. Sometimes it can go 2. Most of the time it goes more. They use them on the swallowtails, the short tails. It's ARCI, so they do tag the short tails as well. So, and the cost this past season was $3,000. I would anticipate with everything else, it probably is going to go up again. But that's a good question. If they actually found the bird, would they reuse it? I would venture to say yes if it's in really good shape, and maybe even replace the battery. I don't know if the battery is replaceable because I don't think they really think of that. They think the bird's going to go, even if it does pass, So, and hopefully most birds will get to the point where, the battery dies as opposed to, so then you got to figure out, so here you go. So the battery dies, the bird's probably still going. If the bird is stationary and the battery's still going, like Sean Lee, that bird that didn't ping the towers and she was worried, that's when you would know something may be wrong or it's not in the cell tower area. So that's a really good question. I actually may, ask Sean Lee when I go back next week. Yeah, that was a great question. I never thought about reusing it because we try not to talk about the birds not making it. But yeah, no, that is a good point. Yeah, so yeah, and that makes sense. And again, I mean,
she's with the
ARCI, yeah.
which is the Avian Research Conservation Institute.
Yep.
Out of Gainesville, and they've been putting them on swallowtail kites. They've been putting them on
short tails, yeah.
A variety of trackers on butterflies now.
Right, right.
I always wonder why they're so big.
Right. No, but they're actually better than they used to be, the old trackers sending out the signal because they ping off the cell towers and everything pings off a cell tower now. I mean, even your, fire rescue, all of that kind of stuff, pings off the cell towers now. So it's there is a little bit, like it's hourly, so there's a little bit of lag time even for like Sean Lee or the sponsor, because by the time you go, the 8:00 report is, this gal that went 250 miles, she was probably 100 miles into her journey before we get the next one. Yeah. I wouldn't probably, they say it's 10% of the bird's body weight. So, but obviously it's a standard because we had a male and female. Maybe not even like 3 ounces. It was very small. I mean, it looked big on the bird because the picture was, he had a great lens, maybe this big, really light. I mean, it's in there, all technology is so much lighter now too. So it did strap on like a backpack, because we did call it. They had little straps that went around the bird's back. Yep, and it was sewn on. I actually had a picture. I guess it didn't. I put a picture in last night of her sewing it. But it's about this big, and then it just has really thin ropes, so it did go around. So somebody had to hold the bird while she put it around, and then sewed it, and then glued, and she actually arced some stuff in there. No, she actually brought a needle to sew. Not into the bird, no. No.
The bands, it's almost like ribbon.
Right.
And where the pieces have to crisscross and attach or so, she does kind of reinforce the ribbon.
Especially with an adult, I don't know, she really, really sewed that. And then, yeah, it was 3 or 4 ounces, yeah. And then she did a little bit of gluing to do some reinforcing on the adult. So, yeah. Like when you would do something, you'd actually like burn it. Like when we do perching and you want to get the ends off, you kind of like cauterize, you burn the ends. She did it with glue. We're not going to do it with that. So, but yeah. So, I mean, if they were doing crazy things, yes, but she wants to make it so it's not too tight, but yet not too loose. So there's an art to that, and she's very meticulous. Gina, she's meticulous on a bad day, good day. But when she's doing this, she knows, the sponsors, everything, the whole thing is on the line. So, yeah, we build in an extra hour and a half when we put backpacks on. So,
I don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who do trackers on birds, but especially in the state of Florida, I don't know if there's anybody who has as much experience as those.
Oh, Gina and Ken, yeah, for sure. For sure. And really nice people too. Really, really great people to work with. Yeah, definitely. Anybody else? Anybody have any questions for Nancy? Anybody want to rescue eagles? All right.
Well, one thing that I would say that we didn't actually say, but that when you raised your hands initially, there were a lot of people that were in EagleWatch. How many people are not in EagleWatch? Okay, so this is the lady you need to see.
Yeah, if you're interested, yeah.
If you want to.
Yeah, I'll get you hooked up with Sean Lee, and then we'll get you out to, if you have a county around here, you would most likely have a county coordinator.
What exactly is EagleWatch, and how much? Like, I watch eagles, like I used to watch. I don't.
Well, shoot, we need you to put it in the database.
SWFL, like they're
Oh, Fort Myers.
Yeah. I would watch them, and then the lady, the eagle.
So you watch the cams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cam. Yeah. But what exactly is?
So it's a community science program where we're boots on the ground. We go to the nests. You're assigned a nest. And most of us, you know, if we have specific nests or we knock people out, no. And she just about took her head off. And basically, we go to nests and we watch for when they come back, how they build their nest, when they incubate, when they brood, when they when they hatch, when they brood, when they grow up, how they fledge. Everything that's going on around them. We advocate for any kind of construction or things like that. We enter everything into a database. So the season starts October 1st, just started. Our eagles come back July, August now, right, Kim? And it ends May 15th, but a lot of us have nests that go on even into July, depending on second clutch late nesters. And you go twice a month for 20 minutes a week. Most of us here go way more than that because we're addicted and we can't stop and that kind of thing. But that's the base minimum for what we require. Yeah, and then there's that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a famous nest.
The lead and the fishing lures, and also up there, I think the big problem was the electrical ghosts. They were finding out something where they were, I don't know, getting electrocuted or whatever. But it was that breaking my heart. I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
So you don't see as much. I'm not going to say bad things don't happen, but you don't get as much graphic because you're on the ground. So a lot of it is you need to learn how to see the behaviors and interpret what you're seeing. So we do know that eaglets die, and we do know that birds hit things, and yeah, and it is the circle of life, and Mother Nature is difficult, and an eagle's life is very, very hard. Any kind of bird, any kind of animal's life. I mean, I'm going to be blunt with you. Juvenile eagles are first year 50%, only 50% make it. But if we're part of that 50% that makes it, and we make it easier for them because we help with keeping the construction away or rescuing a bird that, if we weren't monitoring that nest or met that neighbor who called it in, would die on the ground.
Or even protecting land. I know.
Yeah.
You work to protect land where the eagles nest are. So like construction.
Yep. It's a lot.
We had a piece of land that the owner wanted to sell, and unfortunately, we had two shot birds on that property. And he wanted to sell the property. It backed up to a preserve. So I took it to Pasco County, and through their EagleWatch program, they actually purchased that property.
They actually annexed, with the preserve. That's awesome.
All
All of these things, I mean, she probably helped more than just the eagles with that. How much wildlife was on that? Yeah.
And the neighbors didn't want it. It was 9 acres of land that the neighbors did not want to develop.
Yeah.
It's actually beautiful. It's right on the river.
So there are a lot of things through EagleWatch that we do, and they're just bare minimum things. So if you are interested, you live in what county? Okay, so Louise is the coordinator in Pinellas. I can hook you up with Sean Lee if you're interested. Just give me your email address. I took her email address. I can hook you up with Sean Lee with the training. If you watch the 2-hour training and you're like, wow, it's not for me, no big deal. You've learned a little bit about eagles. You've decided that, hey, maybe not, no, nothing lost. But if you do decide you want to do it, Louise is a great coordinator. Pinellas is a great county. I'm going to tell you, 90% of them are on artificial structures here because there's no land here. So, exactly. But that being said, I honestly am much better at monitoring towers because of that. And it's all about angles, and you learn a lot of stuff. And you can be great advocates as well with the tower companies and the businesses that are around. And I mean, Louise can tell you all about that. We've worked how many towers in just 2 weeks, the two of us together. So, yeah. definitely. So if you're interested, let me know. Like I said, it's a 2-hour video she sends out. If you're not interested, she doesn't, that's on, it's not a problem.
Suggest if you're not sure if you want to do it and you're like, maybe I want to try, just try one nest that's close to you.
Or, I've done this in my counties. I set you up to go out with one of our seasoned volunteers, Roger. I do that all the time with Roger. I send people out with him all the time. Ask Susie connects with Roger, and she was new, and now she's out there finding nests. Sean Lee's like, where did Susan get that?
We're driving down the interstate. We're coming down the interstate.
There's one.
She's driving, and she's like, I think that's a nest. And so we were like, okay. So we drove back. We're like, holy moly. There was this gigantic tree nest. Probably the hurricanes took some trees out. We couldn't see it before.
Right.
But there was this huge nest. Because once you start...
You found like 3 or 4 nests last season. So I was the seasonal with Sean Lee, and she looked over at me at one point. She's like, what's up with Susan Buchanan? She's new. Is somebody helping her? I said, no, she caught on quickly. She has Nancy. She has Roger mentoring her. I said, man, she's on it. So...
And the other day, she calls, can you rescue something? No, I'm out checking on my eagles. I'm like, she's got it.
What? Hang on one sec. Don't forget it.
Because some repairs or something, there was some river that, it had been so utilized that during COVID when it wasn't, it got clean.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
So is it true that, or is it just my awareness? Because I grew up in Hills County, Safety Harbor, Clearwater area. I never saw an eagle ever. And now
you gotta look on the cell towers.
Well, I think the other thing, if you go back in time, I mean, I'm 68, so when I was a little girl, there wasn't as many bald eagles.
Right.
Not nearly as many. In fact, there was very few. Less activity, did that kind of allow them?
No, what's happening now is their territories are shrinking. So used to have 1 to 3 mile territories. On Hillsborough Avenue, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 that all fish either